Their entire tagline is representation is a form of innovation. Sweet Baby Inc. is a consulting company out of Canada, and all of these major game companies, or all these major games that have been developed over the last few years, a lot of them have gone through this company for various sorts of consultations, whether it's been through story, whether it's been through diversity. There's been a number of different ways that this company is used, and they launched in 2000. They say 2018, but it's more 2019. And you want to know why some of the games have taken a turn? This company has the reticle clearly on it. So, James, I'm going to allow you to take it from here, and let's actually start with the original Twitter post that kind of called all this out.
Sweet Baby Inc. is a company that has been around since 2018, but the people within the company have been impacting games in this way for much longer. I think the earliest we could find was Far Cry 4, which I believe was 2014. And effectively, what Sweet Baby is, it on paper it sounds like innocent enough, but they're a consulting company that video game developers and publishers can go to be like, hey, we need writing tips. We need you to complete writing and all this stuff. Can we outsource the writing to you? And they go and they will write anything. On their own website, they say they'll handle anything from indie all the way to AAA. And it doesn't matter what the game is. It doesn't matter what the design is, anything. They will take on any game. And why will they take on any game? Because for this company, I hate to say it, it's more about putting their agenda and what they want to turn the industry into rather than love and care for the game itself. So it doesn't matter if you're a horror game, doesn't matter if you're an indie game, doesn't matter if you're a romance game, nothing. They're just like, oh, we'll write it. But while we're writing it, we're going to force X, Y, and Z, everything that you've seen. The big thing for me is I thought I was going crazy the past 10 years, and I am crazy. But I thought that like all these companies were hiring individual writers. Like it was just how society was going. This is the games that people are writing now. They were just hiring like hundreds of people, just wanted to write these kind of agenda-filled stories. Turns out I was kind of wrong, and laziness actually won. And it's developers and publishers going to Sweet Baby and being like, you handle it. So, folks, I just want to say to you, do you feel like your games have been written by the exact same person? Turns out they have been written by the exact same person. Doesn't matter if it's an Xbox game, a PC game, a PlayStation game. These companies have written Spider-Man 2 recently, which, if you know, Spider-Man 2 has had a lot of issues in this regard. And then recently, Alan Wake 2. They've worked with Xbox, Valve, EA, Ubisoft. Pretty much, if you look at their affiliates or like who they worked with, they cover like an insane large number of the industry. So, yeah, I think this is huge, and more people should be focusing on it. There you go. You can see Xbox, EA, Valve, Santa Monica, which is the recent God of War, which we all know about. Warner Brothers covers so many companies. This website used to say Rocksteady, which was Batman. Now they just do all-encompassing everything under Warner Brothers. Oh, there is Rocksteady, but yeah. And it goes all the way back to Polytron. Polytron, which all you old heads in the chat will know is Fez and made by Phil Fish. So this has been going on for a long, long time. And yeah, it's been freaking crazy. And if you talk about it, here's the thing. They want good attention. If you talk about it on Twitter, they will block you. I did one tweet saying, I am just bookmarking. There's our tweet. All I said was this, because I didn't want to talk about it because it is pretty political. All I said is following them just so I know what games not to play. They blocked me. And then our buddies Kendon in the chat, he got blocked just for liking this tweet. And then we had another buddy in there that said, who the heck is Sweet Baby? And then they replied immediately after going, never mind, I'm blocked. So these guys hate being noticed. They hate spotlights. They hate shining a light on them. They just want to appeal to all the corporations and all the lazy developers being like, oh, yeah, we'll take care of your game for you. We're going to make it. You don't have to worry about anything. Wipe your hands away. But meanwhile, they're writing in all this stuff. Under Alan Wake on their website, it lists sensitivity as that's something they had to put in. Alan Wake, which I'm a huge fan of Alan Wake. I have the collector's edition. I have no interest in the sequel anymore.
But if you go through their social accounts, you'll see that they've now gone in and they've protected their tweets from anybody. So only approved users can see which the pretty much all social media they've protected, including their Instagram. The account's now private, and so they're right now This is a company that is built around providing a voice to the voiceless, except they don't want to hear anything counter to what they have to say, right? And once again, it goes back into the bubble aspect of things. They want to be shielded off from the real world. But we went in and there was a video that was actually an interview from just about a month ago, which I wanted to dig into today. This was from a YouTube channel called Indie Games Business. And they did an interview or a segment where they allowed the CEO and the COO of Sweet Baby Inc. to kind of share their story.
The next one we'll go over a lot as we go through this presentation, but we obviously have a very diverse team who's super talented. We do a lot of work to do some sensitivity consultation, some representation consultation, some cultural consultation, with the complete aim being trying to give as much perspectives as possible to each game team as to the subject matter they're representing, and trying to give a voice to these consultants.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, what he just said. And if you're not listening, it just sounds like generic COO speak, right? But I want you to pay attention to the last sentence that he said, keeping in mind that this is a generic white guy named David who is in here fighting for diversity for people and providing. And once again, listen to this last sentence here.
What is the function of a COO?
The COO is a chief operating officer. They
Right.
make sure they're the ones who make sure that people are doing the things they need to be doing. The executive boss of the CEO traditionally is the person who is making executive decisions, steering the company. They're the captain of the ship. And the COO is the one making sure all the people are doing the necessary things, more or less. I think that's a best way to put it. Okay.
Right.
So go once again, listen to this last sentence here.
To the subject matter they're representing, give as much perspectives as possible to each game team as to the subject matter they're representing, and trying to give a voice to these consultants.
Okay. So what he just said right there was, we want to give a voice to the consultants. And once again, on the surface, that sounds very generic. But once again, all of the consultants on their company, they have this quote unquote diverse, very well represented company. So what they're saying is they want to give a voice to the people who work for them to then put into these games. That's what they're saying in that sentence right there, which once again pushes a narrative. This is a thing that, individual people have individual thoughts. If I'm a blind Black lesbian, I have a certain worldview. Well, I guess not really a worldview. I'm blind, but but
you do the deaf Black lesbian like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, if I'm a deaf Black lesbian from the inner city, right? Which, by the way, this company worked on Spider-Man 2, right? So this may have been
They thought that was a great idea. Probably those people that were like, oh my God, a deaf Black lesbian. Yeah, they
Spray
thought it was
painting.
great. They were like, oh my God, the
Top
world
tier.
needs this.
Now, to be clear, we cannot confirm that Sweet Baby Inc. was the one who pushed for that narrative, the idea of the inner city Black deaf girls doing spray paint, right? We don't know that, right? And once again, I don't really care, whatever. But I just think you're limiting your market. But let's go and continue here.
Publicly, for Spider-Man 2, they just list, story consultation is officially.
Right.
So everything they do is very vague and broad and kind of all-encompassing.
Okay, let's continue.
Looking at a list of red flags of like, oh, make sure you don't offend this, and
I think it's important that we listen to this. This is how they don't want to do it.
a list of to these consultants, so that it's not looking at a list of red flags of like, oh, make sure you don't offend this and do this badly. It's more, okay, this is what you could be doing if you leaned into this identity, if you leaned into this to this inspiration, and for people of these backgrounds, of these identities, this is the kind of stuff that they would like to see, and they would like to. This is how they would like to see themselves represented on screen in a game, and they've never seen it before.
Okay.
Cringe.
So what he's saying is, well, I'll tell you, you know what, Kate, what do you think he was saying there?
He's pretty much saying, we won't go in and be like, oh, this is a red flag. You can't say this. This will offend people. You instead have these people consult and say, hey, this is actually the direction you should go in. This is the better way to go. Go do this. This is how people want to be represented.
Right. And
Insane.
not people, by the way, this select small group of people.
Protected.
That represent
group.
everyone of color.
That kind of forms our thesis for the company, that like representation is a form of innovation.
Okay, there it is. Bingo. Let's listen to this one more time.
This is how they would like to see themselves represented on screen in a game, and they've never seen it before. And so that kind of forms our thesis for the company, that like representation is a form of innovation, and that it is one of the greatest sort of blue sky approaches to innovation that people aren't really thinking about right now.
Okay, man, I got a lot to unpack on there, because I am listening to everything he has to say, and I've heard a lot of corporate bullshit speak before in the past, right?
Mhm.
Their entire thesis for their business, their entire tagline is representation is a form of innovation, right? First off, they just picked two words that rhyme, and they thought it sounded good. Like somebody says that and they go, oh, that makes a great mission statement for our company. But the reality of that statement is that it doesn't mean jack shit. What they're saying is that, and when he said this is a blue sky approach, that means just like a blue sky approach just means an outside of the box thinking. Okay. So he's saying putting representation into video games is an outside of the box thinking, which their entire company is built around. What fucking world is this guy living in? Because it's all over the place in the video game space. What innovation do you receive by having representation? Like that's the dumbest way of thinking I've ever heard in my life. It's stunning and incredibly brave of them to think. I'll open it up to you guys.
Yeah, everybody else is doing it, so we're innovating. But James, I'm curious. I saw on that list of clients something that made me very sad. Square Enix, is that right?
Yeah, so even like on the Japan side of things, they're starting to
that's
go
what I
after
was gonna
this as
say.
well.
Because I have been completely divorced from modern games from about 2 years. Except Japanese games. So do you think this is coming for the Japanese market as well, or Square Enix is a one-off thing?
Yeah, I think the way that they're advertising this is they're trying to make this sound like an idealized thing. They're trying to push companies into saying this is what you want. And so lazy publishers and developers are like, oh, we don't have to hire a writer anymore. We're just going to outsource to this guy. The way video game writing used to go in a lot of cases, and it's especially true for Japan, is you kind of create the game design and you create the mechanics about it, because games ultimately are supposed to be about fun. And then you hire a writer to come into the company. So I actually studied video game writing. That's what I wanted to do originally. And so it's more like you're a writer in a different field, and then you get contracted in to write about something you know. If they're making a comic book video game, they're going to hire comic book writers. Not anymore. Sweet Baby is changing that. And so they're trying to appeal to everyone. Doesn't matter what you're writing, just let us take care of it and we'll take care of you. So we've seen this a little bit with Japanese companies, and Kay is a big Japanese fan. I've always been a Western developed guy, which is why I've been miserable for the past decade or so. But yeah, now going for Square Enix and all these companies, I think there's a lot of companies in Japan that are like, why are the Americans always screaming and crying on Twitter at us? Maybe we should hire these guys to take care of some of our writing. And then they're in for a rude awakening.
For localization efforts,
which Nintendo has been doing for a long time. So anytime that Nintendo's had an issue in this regard, it's actually been because of a company called Nintendo Treehouse. So Nintendo, the Japanese versions are fine, and a lot of Fire Emblem fans know this, but Treehouse gets a hold of it, the localization team, and then suddenly they're putting in all this garbage into the game. And it's like I've noticed Nintendo fans don't even blame Nintendo. It's this one section of Nintendo called Treehouse that do the localization. So Nintendo already has their own.
It's not as bad as a full-on Western games, right?
Yeah.
Out of where? And this is important. Where's Treehouse located?
Let me pull that.
Seattle.
Washington?
Seattle.
Oh, there you
Seattle,
go.
Washington.
I feel like it's Seattle, yeah.
And how many, like Seattle, Portland, any West Coast city, San Francisco, LA, these are fucking bubbles that these people live in. And These are small portions of society that are putting a very crazy ideology attached to this. But what do you think about this? Leave us a comment down below. We read every single one of them. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button because you have found your home for common sense in the gaming and entertainment worlds.